All right, everybody. Let's continue. So we talked about various kind of functions. Functions are something in programming that let us do things. We've kind of learned a couple of basic functions, including the random function and the wiggle function. In this case, random applies a random number. Wiggle applies an effect or a change at an increment, like how many times per second. Next thing we're going to talk about is looping. And there's a function called loop out. And what it allows us to do is the take the animation of a layer and loop it or repeat it over and over and over again. So I have this green square and it has four keyframes on it. Or sorry, I'd take that back. There's five keyframes. There goes one, two, three, four, and then five, and then returns back to its origin point. Now, if I were to play this, you can see it does it once, right? But what if I wanted to repeat that over and over and over and over again? So what we're going to do is I'm going to set this to, I've added I'm going to add a expression with the keyframes for position, and I'm going to say loop out. Okay. And essentially what this tells the browser to, or sorry, what it tells After Effects to do is take my keyframes and loop it forever and ever and ever for as long as the timeline is going. So you can see that it's, repeating my thing over and over and over, even though I've only really done it once. So first of all, you can see why this is nice because it repeats, saves me time in terms of having to, make a bunch of keyframes. What's also nice is it's really easy to edit my repeatable action. So, right now it's like, okay, it's going from here to there. Let's just say for the sake of argument, I'm going to add an additional keyframe. So I'm going to drag that there. And then maybe I'm going to drag one. Oops, didn't mean to do that, but let me kind of move in and add a keyframe. So see, I'm adding additional keyframes here just to kind of play around with the motion path a little bit. And so I changed my keyframes, and the result of that's going to be it updates all of my looping. So you can see, like, had I done this by hand by, putting in keyframes, like I could have done this by copying and pasting keyframes, but if I went and changed just one, I'd have to go and redo it all. Whereas this, I edit it once and then it automatically updates. So it's a nice little time saver. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a loop of this star pulsing. So I'm going to take the star and let's have it go from, I'm going to go over, let's zoom in on the timeline here. So over 10 frames or a third of a second, I'm going to have this grow to about 150 and then go back to 100. Okay. All right. So I did it once, right? Let me zoom out a little bit. But I want this to, continue over and over and over. Well, I'm going to hit Option and add an expression. Let us type in loop out. If you want to do it through the little pop-up here, let's try that out. Where is loop out? It should probably be under, there it is, loop out. Okay. I just find it easier just to type it out myself. Loop out, capital O. Oops. All right. And then let me zoom out with my timeline. And there you go. Just loops forever and ever. Now I can look at this and go, you know what? That's really fast. Maybe I don't want it as fast. So rather than having to redo the whole thing, I'm like, all right, let's zoom in And let's kind of space these out a little bit from each other. So if I take that, and I take that, and I move it down as such, it's still going to loop, but it's not looping quite at the same speed. So it's a little nicer there. Okay. All right, so that is easy way to loop an action. So if you have something that's moving in a circle and you just want it to keep going, or some other, action, maybe I have something that's like, I just wanted to constantly redo the action again and again and again. This is a nice, easy way of doing that. Next is something called ping pong. So right now, let's just kind of see what happens here. I have this outer, is this the outer? Yeah, I have this outer ring, and it's going about a quarter of a turn or a half turn, 180, right? As you can see. Now, if I were to loop this, let's say I did loop or loop out, I should say. This would look a little bit awkward. So if I do this, it's like, see how it's like kind of jumping, right? And that's because, its last point of movement was here, and then it just like magically jumps back there, right? So that it kind of, that's why in my previous one, usually if you're trying to make the loop kind of seamless, you have the object end where it also started, and that makes the loop look more seamless. There's another way you could do this, which is we could do something called ping ponging. In ping pong, what you do is if you type ping pong inside of quotation marks here, inside of your loop out, what that's going to do is it's going to have it go back or go in reverse of whatever it did. So in this case, this went this way. Ping ponging would tell it to go back, and it would constantly just kind of go back and forth forever and ever. Once again, by changing the keyframes, you're going to change how this works. So I don't know. Let's just say for the sake of argument, it does that, back to, there. So it's still going to loop, or you can see how it still, updates or, changes the looping that's occurring there. So I'm going to do the same thing for the inner ring. The inner ring is doing the same thing, but in the opposite direction. Once again, if I did a loop out, it would just kind of jump there. So I don't want it to loop out totally, but instead let's do ping pong. All right. Mm. All right. All right. So the last thing I kind of want, we could spend a lot of time talking about programming. This is not a programming class. If you have experience with JavaScript, you might sort of understand what's going on here, and maybe you can think of ways of applying certain things. What I'm going to do is now that ChatGPT is a thing, I know normally I don't want to use ChatGPT, but this is one of the rare occasions I'll let you use it. I'm going to use ChatGPT to write some code. Okay. So I have a ball here and I want the ball to kind of like bounce, like, kind of like a ball falling. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT. Of course, it really all kind of depends on the prompt that you write. Use After Effects expressions to make a ball fall and bounce. Okay, let's see what it gives me. I'm flying blind here. I did not, but so essentially what's going on, I don't want to get too deep into it, is it's giving you JavaScript. Um, you don't really, these are just comments. You don't need that. But what I'm going to do is copy this code. Make sure you copy all of it. Otherwise, Whatever you did will probably not work if I'm being honest. And let's go to the ball. And I'm gonna hit position and hit, expression. I'm gonna get rid of this and let's copy and paste that code I got from ChatGPT. And let's see what happens. All right, not bad. Looks like it's a little low there, but maybe I would, I'd give it like a height or something. Like I don't know. I don't know what's the size of this room. It's 480, you know. You can try looking at the instructions here. So the floor is, oh, okay, I didn't give it a floor. So the floor should be 480, I believe. See, floor is 800. I need it to be 480. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Not exactly what I wanted, but you can see how you can play around. I'm not, you might be able to find expressions online or write them with ChatGPT or something like that. Right. And After Effects expression that makes a shape explode. I don't know if this will work or not. We'll see. Uh, so I'm going to go here. Let's just get rid of this and then do it again. I don't know what this is going to do. All right. I wouldn't say that's exploding, but all right. Kind of more like it was shot out of a cannon, if I'm being honest. So, you kind of get what you get. I'm not promising, but the more you know about programming, the more you can kind of, do some interesting things here. Obviously, it depends on how good you explain yourself in a prompt or something like that. Oh, right. Last thing I want to talk about is it's not actually related to expressions, but something that I think is useful and can definitely up your level of motion graphics is using what's called the graph editor. Okay. Now, at this point, you guys have done a lot when it comes to keyframing and creating some basic animations, animating things like position and scale and all that good stuff. So right now I have this square, this purple square, and I want it to move across the page. So what I'm going to do is hit play, and it's moving across the page at a constant rate. All right. Now, the way that this is moving is we would call this a linear or a constant speed. And what I mean by that is the speed of my square at the beginning is the same as it is in the middle, is the same as it is at the end. Okay. And the thing about that is, in real life, a lot of times the speed of something is not consistent. It may speed up or it may even slow down at what we call a parabola. So let me give you an analogy here. Imagine your car is, you're at a stop sign, right? And you're trying to get on a highway or a very busy street. You're not going to kind of like go at a constant rate when you accelerate. You're going to start where you're going really slow, and then you're going to kind of speed up really quickly, like this, okay? Where the speed is not consistent, you're speeding up in a much shorter distance. So that would be an example of like not, having a constant speed. Or the opposite might be true, where it's like if you're slowing down, let's say you get off a highway, right? And you're going 60 or 80 or whatever you're doing, and it's you got to stop soon because there's like a stop sign. You're not going to just kind of like very, consistently stop. You're going to kind of stop. And then at the end, you're kind of like going really, you know what I mean? So you're stopping a lot at the beginning and then kind of going in. So this is where we can play around with this. And this is called the graph editor. So what's happening here is this line represents the speed of my character, which in this case is this purple square. And so you have to understand that like when you have a straight line, that means there's a consistent speed. My character is always moving exactly the same speed no matter what. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. And when you do, you should probably get some options here where it says things like add auto Bezier or easy ease or something like that. I'm going to say auto Bezier. Okay. This gives me this Bezier handle here. And what this would mean is that my character is going to start slow, and then it's actually going to, or sorry, it's going to start fast, and then near the end is going to kind of slow down, if that makes sense. So it's like this part's going to happen real quick, and then it's going to kind of, the rest of it's kind of easing in. Okay. So what should happen now is that my character speeds up really fast and then kind of eases in. Oops, maybe not. I am talking about maybe like here. Let me do that. This would be the opposite where it starts slow and then it kind of speeds up. Okay, see that? Where like it's kind of low and then this big hurdle at the end. I could also do it the other way where I'm going to take this, maybe it's going to start fast and then it's going to kind of level out. So it's going to start really fast and then decelerate. Okay. So let me show you an example of where this could be helpful. Okay. And this will be the last thing that we do today. I'm going to make a red circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a ball bounce. So this ball is going to fall. It's going to hit the ground. This will be my ground. So it's going to, oops, change its position. And then it's going to go up. Come back down. Okay. So, all right. Looks fine. Not amazing, but whatever. Part of the reason it doesn't look as natural as maybe it could is when an object actually falls, it doesn't fall at a consistent rate. Objects start slow and they actually gain speed as they go. So what I'm going to do here is let's grab on the graph editor here. I did that by clicking on the graph editor. And I'm going to do something like this, where it's going to start kind of slow and then speed up at the end. Okay. Then it's going to hit the ground. It's going to be very fast at the beginning. And then as it bounces up, it's actually bouncing against gravity. So it's going to start really fast and then get slower. Okay. So in other words, it's going to start like this and kind of decelerate. So and then when it bounces up, it's going to be the same thing again, where it's like, all right, it's going to bounce up and get slower. All right, so if I play this back, you can see how it looks a little better there, and that's by using the graph editor to, speed up and slow things down. Okay. So you might want to use this in your animation where it's like you can help to decide when things should, speed up and slow down, and not making everything at a constant rate. Okay.